Hi, I'm Beth Richardson, and as was said, I'm very passionate about using the power of business to create social and environmental change. I was fortunate enough when I was a university student at Duke to have an experience where I was placed in a foundation for a summer to work in Cape Town, South Africa. This foundation was called the Amy Biehl Foundation. Amy Biehl was a Fulbright scholar who was killed in township violence in 1993 in Cape Town. Her parents had the amazing emotional capacity and forgiveness to go to Cape Town after her death and to start a foundation that was intended to prevent future violence. When I went to work there for the summer, on my first day, Peter Biehl told me that I would be starting a business with some folks who they'd trained on sewing, but who couldn't find jobs after being trained. Now, as an international studies major, I had no idea what I was doing. So I did the best I could, and those poor people I worked with kind of suffered through me as I learned what it was that they needed that summer. So I realized that they were trying to sell a product for tourists, yet they didn't speak English very well. So I thought, well, maybe they need some English lessons. And then I realized they're trying to run a business, but they don't understand the basics of it. They need to understand how to price their products. And so I made sure that they got some business training. Now, to give you a little digital context about what it's like in South Africa, it's really a first and third world nation in one country. So you kind of have world-class universities and cities. You also have people living in utter poverty. The official unemployment rate in South Africa hovers in the 30% range. In the townships that I worked in, the unofficial unemployment rate was closer to 60%. As a nation today, our unemployment rate's about 10%, and this is shocking to us. Can you imagine a place where 6 out of the 10 people you know aren't able to find work? I returned to South Africa after I graduated, and I picked up the work that I had started with a little bit more knowledge this time. So I designed a training program so that people could get English and business skills and sewing skills at the same time and start a business in an incubated environment. And the transformation that I saw and the people that I worked with was incredible. You can see a picture of Zoliswa up here on the screen, and the pride and the triumph on her face as she graduated from the program. Lungelo, whose quote is on the screen, told me one day, before I came here, I didn't have a future, but now I see my way. Lungelo started dressing differently. Lungelo started talking about going back to school. And the amount of money that they were making through their business was a pittance. You know, they were barely surviving, but the fact that they had a livelihood and that they had something that gave them purpose every day had an amazing effect on their attitude and how they felt about themselves. So when it came time for me to leave South Africa, I had been transformed as well. And I started to understand that business was something that could be used to transform lives and to create incredible social environmental change in our world. So I came home with the idea that eventually I would need to go to business school, which was something that I would have thought was crazy before I ever went to South Africa. I came home and I continued to get schooled by 2 great organizations, Ashoka, which supports social entrepreneurs around the world, and Self-Help, which is here in North Carolina, and provides access to capital to people who wouldn't have access otherwise. For those of you who were worried when I started out by saying that I went to Duke, I then went to Carolina and spent my time at business school building a business called Zebra Crossings. And Zebra Crossings was really a continuation of that work that I had done in South Africa. I wanted to create market access for entrepreneurs like those that I had worked with in South Africa by creating a business in the US that would sell fairly traded products. But I had this frustration I kept on experiencing. I had decided to structure my business as a for-profit business because I felt like that was the best way to scale. The faster I could grow the business, the more impact that my business could have. Yet continually, I was being questioned by people about that. They were asking me, are you really doing good if you're a for-profit? Don't you have to be a nonprofit to be creating good? And it was frustrating to me that people didn't understand that it was really the format that I felt was the best to create impact was why I was choosing for-profit business. Now, after graduation, I didn't end up pursuing Zebra Crossings, but I did find an organization that could help me with these challenges I was having around the idea of for-profit businesses creating change. And I joined a nonprofit called B-Lab. B-Lab was founded by entrepreneurs, and mission is to create a new sector of the economy, whose centerpiece is the B Corporation. B stands for benefit. And B corporations use the power of business to solve social and environmental problems. There's one company in our community, Greyston Bakery, that employs anyone who comes off the street. So if they have a history of being in prison or if they have had used drugs in the past, it doesn't matter. You can still be employed. There's another company called Give Something Back that gives 100% of their profits to charity. They're an office supply company. They're getting tremendous benefit through the charitable donations that they generate. Other companies in our community you might recognize are 7th Generation, Method, Dansko, or King Arthur's Flour. To date, we have 275 certified B corporations that have collective revenue of $1.2 billion. In order to be a B, you have to do two things. The first thing you have to do is to take our rating system, which looks at your accountability or governance practices, how you treat your employees, how you impact the community, your impact on the environment, and then what your products and services are. Now, the second thing, which is kind of novel, is that we ask all the companies in our community to modify their articles of incorporation so they recognize their stakeholders as well as their shareholders in their decision-making processes. TEDxTriangleNC is a local B corporation, and you're not supposed to have favorites, but they're one of my favorites. And TEDxTriangleNC has been in business for decades, but they really got in trouble in the 1990s. They sell t-shirts, and NAFTA came through in the 1990s and really destroyed their business. All of their customers started going overseas to buy t-shirts. But Eric and Tom, who are the co-founders, are from Burlington, North Carolina, and were committed to staying here. So they had to rethink their whole business model in order to stay in business. And so they really started to see sustainability as the answer for how they could stay in business. And so today they have 3 product lines. They sell fair trade and organic t-shirts, they sell a line that's completely organic, and they sell a third line called Cotton's the Carolinas, which Eric will tell you is dirt to shirt in 100 miles. So they're bringing back organic cotton to North Carolina. And if you go to their plant, an employee will enthusiastically show you around and show you the wind power and the solar energy they've implemented in the community garden that they have. And TEDxTriangleNC is just one of 40,000 businesses in the US that's doing business in this way right now. This is truly a movement, but it's a movement that most people don't recognize is happening. And it's because people are yelling with their own voice. You have fair trade, you have green, you have energy efficient. But really, all these companies are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to create social and environmental value by the way that they're doing their business. And we're hoping to bring recognition to that space by the creation of the B Corporation. So what's the background of this movement? We've got political logjam in Washington. We've just suffered one of the worst recessions that any of us have in our memories, and there's a lot of corporate distrust, especially around the financial services industry and the real estate industry. So this is actually why I'm optimistic, though. We have all these problems on one side that we hear all the time. But on the other hand, there's this movement that I really think is going to change the way that we live here in the US. So one of these pieces I really think is going to change is around a policy framework that supports businesses. Ben & Jerry's is a company we're all familiar with. What people don't realize is that when Unilever purchased Ben & Jerry's, that there was 2 bids that came in, one from Unilever and one from a group of mission-aligned investors who couldn't have come up with as much of a dollar figure, but which were much more in line with the values of Ben & Jerry's that we know. But the board couldn't consider that second bid because it wasn't in their fiduciary duties. By law, they are required to maximize shareholder value. And so they couldn't consider the other bid. So what we need is a new corporate form that supports companies that want to have both mission and profit simultaneously. A new corporate form that allows entrepreneurs to consider their stakeholders. A new corporate form that makes sure that the interests of entrepreneurs and investors are aligned, so that as companies grow and scale, we as consumers, we as investors, know that the mission is still going to be ingrained in the company. We also need a new corporate form that's going to help us serve as a platform for incentives. In North Carolina, we recently spent a lot of money luring Dell to come here to create jobs. Dell spent a very short amount of time here and then left for Mexico. We need to be able to structure a corporate form that allows us to drive incentives to companies like TEDxTriangleNC that fought to stay here to create jobs in North Carolina. We've just introduced legislation in 2 states, in Maryland and Vermont, to create the Benefit Corporation, which is a variation of the C Corporation, and essentially has higher standards for purpose, accountability, and transparency for companies. We're hoping to introduce legislation here in 2011 for the Benefit Corporation, so keep posted. Now, another trend I want to talk to you about today is impact investing. Some of you may be familiar with socially responsible investing. So this is similar to that, but socially responsible investing tends to focus on the negative, making sure that you're not investing in tobacco, that you're not investing in nuclear arms. Impact investing is about investing in the positive. And this is a nascent sector. There's still some barriers to this sector. And what we're hearing is that a lack of common definition about what a good business is, and a lack of kind of a ratings that allows you to compare one company to another is holding the sector back. We will be launching a product next year called GIIRS, which will provide ratings so that an investor who, like JPMorgan Chase, who's one of our supporters, who may not have expertise in social and environmental analysis but has the capital to invest, these ratings will make it easier for them to invest in these companies that are generating impact. And so with the policy and with the capital markets piece, the end goal is a new sector of the economy. Now, nonprofits also are generated to create public benefit, but the way that they're funded means that it's difficult for them to scale innovation and for them to attract talent. The government also has a role to play in creating societal benefit, but is not known for being the source of innovation. Business represents 77% of the economy and is known for being able to garner capital and to scale innovation. In order for us to solve the problems that we have in our society, we really need business to be engaged in a new way so that we can have more economic opportunities for individuals, so that we can strengthen our communities, so we can reduce the burden on the environment and alleviate poverty. So I want to thank you for having me here today, and I want to ask all of you to help scale this new sector of the economy by shopping from these companies that are pioneers, investing in them, and working with them. Thank you very much.
Beth, Richardson, everybody.